Now today's shop project, I'm going to take the Yamaha Fzr 1000, it's a 1991, and replace the fuel pump. It requires changing the ends on the aftermarket pump. That's a little bit of the job that you have to do. Taking the bike apart, putting it back together, pretty simple. Try to have the not too much gas in the tank, makes it a little bit easier. We did this on a very, very cold day, way below freezing. And I do remember the quartz heater saving my bacon because my hands were getting so cold I couldn't feel the screwdrivers. But if you're working in a warmer climate, that's not even a factor. It's a relatively simple, straightforward job. Takes about 2 hours if I remember right. And I hope you get some good information from this video. Step one is to get the bike up on the stand. I like to work on a bike while it's steady like this. Just makes it a little bit easier. So one of the things that makes working in this temperature out here at least bearable is my quartz heater. And the quartz heater does not heat air, it heats things. So when you stand next to it, it just goes right through you. And it's, to me, it's worth every penny. Until my hands actually warm up, and by the way, I've had this thing about 20 years, and boy is it great. And one thing that's good about this bike, it does come apart relatively simply and easily. And we've had to do it so many times, I've had to do it so many times, that we've done a lot of things to it, a lot of mods. And the highlight of this bike is really funny. The day I finished my 900-hour restoration, I dumped the bike. You can't make that stuff up. Now, of course, as I'm taking this apart, I'm laying all the parts out. In the sequence, I take them out, and leaving out in sequence all the tools that I use to do this job. So when I go to put it back, I just start at the other end of the row and it'll go back, hopefully. And as I get older, that seems to be a better and better tip. And every time I disassemble something, I'll just put it in this row. And again, that's a good useful tip. And I always leave out on my bench any tools that I need to put the bike back together. It just makes it a little bit easier. It's a good tip. Now, one of the things I always did with this bike was zip tie on the little pieces that, the little tang that holds the seat from coming off, because I was always paranoid that during track day the seat would come off. Now we have a relatively new battery tender lithium-ion battery in this bike. Now, one of the things that I'm glad of is when it ran out of gas, and it ran out of gas because the fuel pump can't pump up to the carburetors. Let's hope that's the case. And when I tested the circuit, what should happen is when you turn the key on, and you should hear 5 seconds, the fuel pump, well, we don't hear anything. So that led me to believe, and Luciano confirmed my diagnosis, that the fuel pump was bad. So, and it's about 5 years old, and it's an aftermarket one. It's not a real Yamaha one, so they're about 30 bucks. So I've got a brand new one, and now I've got to take this off, break the fuel line, and this bike does not have a fuel reserve that works. I don't know why. I never bothered with it. I just ride 100 miles and put gas in it. But taking a tank off, I've done it so many times, and every time you do it, it's a pain. The reason some of this maintenance takes longer than it should is I try to Loctite everything from, because we did use this bike as a track bike for many years. Get the a heat gun or hair dryer on some of the overflow tubes. In fact, this one is a rock. Holy mackerel. And it's always a big help if you don't have a full tank of gas. I don't know how much this has, but it would be nice if right now it only had about a gallon. And I thought it was a good one because we were doing regular track days. To get a quick disconnect on a fuel line, which right now is going to be a big advantage. And I need to get this up in the air. And what I need right now is to turn my fingers into little baby fingers to get down in there. Oh, I remember how much fun it is to get there, and you got that quick disconnect, and when it's cold your fingers could crack. Now, the way I found to making this easier is it's got this little cotter pin holding this pin, and I don't take that off till I'm ready to actually pull a tank. Otherwise the tank starts rattling around and rolling around, and It just makes it easier to do that right at the last minute before you pull a tank. Now, the quick disconnect fuel line in cold weather, believe me, that's hard to do. I'm going to get the heat gun or a hairdryer and just warm everything up to the touch, because it's just, I'm afraid of always in really cold weather cracking plastic or doing some damage that I don't really want to do. But that quick disconnect fuel line has paid for itself over and over again, and today it's going to pay. And this bike does not have a fuel reserve, so it's supposed to, but in reality it doesn't. Now, another great tip for FZR owners: when we first got this bike, the bike comes with an EXUP valve and a servo, and I had disconnected the servo thinking, well, what do I need a servo for if I don't have an EXUP valve? When you disconnect the servo, the bike won't rev over 4,000 RPM. And it took me a while to figure it out. We finally figured it out, and that servo has to be connected. And you can see when you give it the gas, the servo will move, but it's not hooked to anything. But if you disconnect it, you're going to make yourself crazy. And that is a really good tip if you're an FZR guy. The last thing is to pull this pin once the cotter pin's off, and now the tank is free and ready to take off the motorcycle. Now, it's lucky for us it doesn't feel like it's got too much fuel in it. I think we're good to go here. Okay. Now, whenever I have this bike apart, I think of how many hours this restoration took. It was about 900 hours, and every single minute of it, I think, is on our channel, on previous FZR videos. So once you have the tank off, you can very easily see why. The downdraft carburetors that are part of this bike, the fuel is in a lower part of the tank. The fuel is actually down low. It's one of the reasons the bike has a pretty low center of gravity. I guess that was the great engineering of the time. And a fuel line, a quick disconnect fuel line, once you warm it up, easy peasy. We still have the wiring for the reserve, but it doesn't work, and I have no idea why. I don't need to know. And we've got a rock hard overflow line we got to deal with. But right now, what that does, it exposes, there's the old fuel pump. Now, because this is an aftermarket fuel pump, we just have it in there, not in the original mount, but actually it's in zip ties, so I can pull this out. And it actually worked good for 5 years, so I really don't feel like I got ripped off. And at the time when I originally replaced this, the original Yamaha one was like 10 times the price. So I took a chance. I got 5 years of service, and I guess I should quit while I'm ahead. So with the zip ties off, there's the fuel pump. We've got it marked, and I've got 2 wires going to it. I'm going to have to splice these wires, I can see, and that's what I had to do with the other one. So the neck, I don't want to get that in the way. And I've got, from this point on, I've got to just take the fuel hoses off, warm them up with a hairdryer, get the hoses off, and disconnect the wires. And then I can test the fuel pump off the motorcycle. So we have the old fuel pump off. Pretty simple thing to figure it out. It's marked which is in, which is out. The only thing we may have, and this is I think an overflow, but I never even used it, never even connected it. It has the mark of which one is plus and which is minus. So I may want to, and I don't know when I take this apart, this is the problem with all aftermarket things, they're going to not have the right part on it. But it's not something we can't deal with. So let's see what part they have on here, and we just have to account which is in, which is out, and it won't matter that one tube is bent. We have all brand new fuel line going on here. Let's see if these are the same, because I want to use the one that's attached to the motorcycle. So what I'm going to do is cut this one off and splice this end. In other words, switch the 2 ends on this. Relatively simple job to do, not a big deal. But so the fuel pumps are the same, so you would think it's our lucky day and it would just fit right on there. And with zip ties, again, we're going to find out. Now, dimensionally, they're almost exactly the same, but this overflow, and I guess that's the overflow there, or it's something. I'm not technical enough to know what that's supposed to do, but it ran 5 years without nothing being on there. So, but this is the issue that I have to deal with. The ends, I've got to switch ends. They're not interchangeable. and I've got to figure out which one is plus and which is minus. This one is marked, of course, lucky for us. This one isn't. So the first thing I have is my trusty, this is from 2009, this battery is the original battery that came with the R1. I charge it every 2 months, and it's lasted, what, 11 years as a test thing, but I don't use it. So now I want to hook up. I know this is positive. I want to see if, just confirm that we have a defective pump here. And I've got nothing coming out of the pump, nothing. But what that's telling me is we have a dead pump. That definitely was the problem. So on the new pump, I've got to, and they've marked which one is positive here. I hope they're right. I guess we're going to find out. We're not sure we're going to ever use that again, but now I can skin back the wires. And, well, you know what I should do? If I was smart, I'd test this pump before I, famous last words here. Let's give it a test. I hate electricity. Everybody that ever worked with me knows how much I hate electricity. But sometimes you just have to bite the bullet here. There you go. That's a good pump. And that's positive if we confirmed it. Good. Take the wires off for now so I don't set the house on fire. Now it's a question of stripping this down, and I got my great little heat shrink tubes. These are just, they got the shrink tubing right on top of them. They make a beautiful connection. Now if you never used these connectors before, I used to solder everything, and boy was it a lot of work. These connectors, and they're from Harbor Freight. I don't even have to say that, everybody would know that. These make a wiring, a job like this so easy. Not a problem at all. And when I'm done with this, just taking a heat gun and heat shrinking that tubing, and you've got, I think, the best job possible. And now once I have those shrunk down, and I know I've got a good connection, and I've got my heavy-duty sleeve that goes right over the top of everything, and this is really extra protection. Again, this was available at Harbor Freight. All of this stuff is. And that'll shrink down on the two of them, give it a little extra protection. And I think what would be a smart thing to do here, maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the world, after I burn myself I figure it out. But anything I can do to protect these wires, because again, it reinforces in my mind that an FZR with a fuel pump that doesn't work, once that fuel level drops, and that's exactly what happens, for all purposes, you're not going to get the bike started. Now, a good thing to remember, and I don't know if this is true, if I was able to get to a gas station and fill it up with gas, that some of that gas wouldn't have been above. I don't know that. So I better not, when I don't know something, I'm always happy to admit I don't know it. Oh, that makes a nice solid joint there. That's really, all right, that's ready to install now. So we're basically at the midpoint of this job, because from now on we just got to snap everything together, put some good hose clamps on those hoses. I've got brand new fuel line. I want brand new hose clamps too. Now when I bought all this fuel line, this one came with a whole bunch of hose clamps. I hope these are going to be, well, maybe even if they're not, I have hose clamps. But it's nice when you have extras. And always having nice new ones is always nice. Just a nice little touch, and have a nice soft fuel line, not that rock stuff. Well, it turns out those are not the right size. Those are for the 1/4 inch. I hope, yeah, I do have some. It always pays to save everything, boy. So we got all the nice new clamps on there, new fuel line. All that's left is to test this. We have the replacement wire. And what I'll do is I just want to hear that buzz. There it is. And of course, it's no point leaving it running. We don't have any fuel hooked up there. Okay, so the last thing, and then I'm going to go take a coffee break. Sort these wires out. and get some new hose clamps holding that down in there where the old one was. And once those hose clamps are tightened, we can go for a coffee break. Come to the end of this and putting this together. I don't want to leave out any steps here. That's in. Now I can hook up all the fuel connections under there, and boy, that really went nice. Hooking up the quick disconnect. There we go. Take out the rubber hammer. So on this bitterly cold day, I'm not sure this couldn't have gone any better. You know, it went pretty good. So as I'm buttoning up the last of the parts here, I always try to explain to people why I like this bike so much. I don't know what there is. There's something about it. And Luciano, thank you when you found this. And I never forget that guy, boy. I think about that a lot. That guy that sold us the bike, this thing had, when we bought it, it had a Harley paint job with flames and skulls, and I still, somewhere on the video, I still have that, but it was unbelievable. I used paint remover, and he must have had 50 coats of paint on the bike. It was beyond belief. And as I always do at the end of every little job, I try to record the maintenance and the mileage. Now, it's definitely been a long day, but it's a very rewarding day to know that that's all done. And thank you, Chris, for getting me that muffler. That's going to allow me to really get riding in these populated areas where I've been riding. So I hope you did enjoy the video and gotten some useful information, help you to maintain your motorcycle, even if you have to do it in the winter like we do here. It was really a cold day, I do remember that. Anyway, we do try to post up a new video pretty much every day. Sometimes we miss a day. We have the objective of it is to share the passion we have for motorcycling, both the riding, the maintenance, and obviously the camaraderie of when we get together and harass each other and see who's got the shiniest motorcycle or the most carbon fiber parts or whatever. But it's all in fun. All the humor is in fun. We love our two-strokes too, of course. And I really love my custom wheels. So again, I hope you did enjoy the video. And thanks so much for watching.